Iron Spirit was a reputable game, so it only used real mechs. The base designs that it sold in the real world were almost as good as the ones available in its virtual store, and its extensive database kept all its designs efficiently categorized. The database included several older models, some dating back to the beginning of the age of mechs, 400 years earlier. Its collection of current designs was incomplete, though. Many of the best and most cutting-edge mech designs were carefully guarded secrets. The BSBH Corporation used a star-based rating system to rate models. Their earliest rating system stopped at 5 stars, but as higher-performing models were introduced, they added higher ratings. Iron Spirit's 1-star models were slow, clumsy, and inefficient compared to the more advanced designs. Although they had a storied history and used to fight on the battlefields with legendary pilots like Mac Lu, the mech pioneer, Vez thought that they seemed ridiculous. He wondered what their designers had been thinking. Their relics. The system had already loaded an older model. The Fantasia 2R was the second iteration of an originally flawed model. It had a humanoid shape and was slim and narrow, so it could run faster and longer than other bulkier models available at the time, but its armor and firepower were weaker. Its designers had given it a feminine form. It had a concave body, sloping breastplate, thin limbs, and a narrow head. To distinguish it from its predecessor, the Fantasia 1R, the manufacturers had added hair-like sensor threads to its head. The sensors served a practical purpose. The 2R models were good scouts. The Fantasia 2R was so light and thin that Vez had very little leeway to make modifications. He could easily tinker with heavier models, shaving off some of their mass to improve their performance by 2 or 3%. If he tried to tinker with a 2R, though, he would risk damaging it. Why did the system have to give me such a thin model? Since he couldn't cut its mass, he looked for other ways to modify it. He knew that he could improve its design by adding new components, but the system had only given him a license for one component. The license was for a Gemini twin rear ejection energy booster, a lengthy name for a component that did 3 things. It allowed the cockpit to eject in emergencies, provided energy storage so that the mech wouldn't need to resupply as often, and provided straight-line acceleration with its boosters. The acceleration used a lot of energy, though. Speed was one of the Fantasia's main features, so the Gemini's boosters seemed to be a perfect match. The only problem was that the Gemini was too big. It had been designed for the first heavy mech, the Mega Crab, which was a behemoth that had twin cockpits and 8 legs. Trying to attach a Gemini to a Fantasia 2R would be like trying to put a fully loaded soldier's pack on a toddler's back. I need more licenses. I can't do much right now, and I'm not good enough to make extensive modifications to the base design. Vez tinkered with the system's designer functionality to see what he could do with it, and he was pleased to discover that some of his modifications worked. The design tools responded to his thoughts and implemented his changes, so he didn't have to worry about making mistakes due to faulty calculations or unsteady hands. With the system's help, his already strong mech grew even stronger. He was having so much fun that it was hard for him to pull himself away from the designer that night. He reluctantly shut it down, ate a cheap nutrient pack, and crawled into an unfamiliar bed with Lucky. Vez spent the next 3 days trying to figure out how to attach the hefty Gemini add-on to the Fantasia's small frame. He tried 17 different ways to attach it. 15 of his attempts were outright failures, but 2 of them produced functional designs. He pulled up a projection of his variant. When he saw what he had created, he wanted to crawl into a hole. The Fantasia 2R looked ridiculous. He had tried attaching the Gemini to Fantasia's lower torso, but it didn't fit. He had thought about moving it up to the shoulders, but it would have thrown the mech off balance. His only option had been to attach it to the Fantasia's waist. The mech's backside was so large that he gasped in shock. When he got over his embarrassment, though, he noticed some improvements. The Fantasia was heavier and less agile with so much added weight, but it was also much faster when it moved in a straight line. He also increased the pilot's safety. The cockpit ejection system could eject 2 cockpits at once, the real one and a decoy. In Iron Spirit, Being able to eject safely lowered the cost of repairing mechs that were defeated. Alright, system. What do you think of my first design? Scanning design. Simulating performance. Simulation complete. User, would you like to name your design? Yeah, let's call it Fantasia 2RE. Its rear end might be the only thing that has been enhanced. Design evaluation. Fantasia 2RE. Variant name, Fantasia 2RE. Base model, Fantasia 2R. Original manufacturer, Kazaya Armaments. Weight classification, medium light. Recommended role, sprinter, harasser. Armor, F. Carrying capacity, F. Aesthetics, A-. Endurance, C+. Energy efficiency, C. Flexibility, D-. Firepower, D+. Integrity, E. Mobility, B+. Spotting, B. X factor, none. Deviance, 23%. Performance improvement, 4.5%. Overall evaluation. The Fantasia 2RE is far too heavy for its intended purpose. But its increased firepower and forward movement redeem it somewhat. Its improved open terrain performance and endurance do not outweigh its lost flexibility, and its performance in close combat is subpar. Its unique appearance may only appeal to a small subset of pilots. Ugh, Vez sighed. User, you have received 1 design point for your first original design. Congratulations on the completion of your first tutorial. Your design point has been added to your inventory, and you have received a bonus for exceeding the mission's requirements. Vez felt relieved. He had worked hard to attach the Gemini, and even though his final design was far from perfect, he had finished it. It was a fluke, though. He wiped away the projection, hoping that he could forget about it, and checked his inventory. He had 2 gift-wrap packages waiting for him. He tapped both icons at the same time, eager to see what he had earned. You have received a virtual license for the following mech. Kazaya Armaments, Fantasia 2R. He groaned and read the second message. You have received a virtual license for the following component. Maxodron Gemini Twin Rear Ejection Energy Booster. What? No way. You just gave me the same stuff that I spent 3 days working on. You have received a new mission. You will find the details on the mission's page. He clicked on the page and read about his new mission. Tutorial Part 2. Your first sail. Difficulty, F rank. Prerequisites. Completion of Tutorial Part 1. Description, you are not a true mech designer until your design is used. Sell a mech based on your first design. Reward, 1,000 design points. You're setting me up to fail. Even if I could find someone stupid enough to buy the 2RE, I don't have enough credits for the raw materials. Iron Spirit doesn't let designers make virtual mechs for free, even if they have all the licenses. You seem to have forgotten about your bonus. Check the currency tab in your inventory. Vez clicked the currency tab and saw a red envelope. When he tapped on it, it opened and transformed into several bills. They landed in a neat stack. You have earned 100,000 bright credits. His jaw dropped. Exceeding the mission's requirements had given him a lot more options. He still didn't have enough credits to buy a license for another mech, but he could afford to buy several components. Armor plating, cooling systems, batteries, and even weapons were all options for him. Before he got carried away planning modifications, he uploaded the design for his 2RE to Iron Spirit's virtual workshop. Once it was uploaded, he turned his attention to the raw materials that he would need to manufacture his design. He spent 10,000 credits. He knew that he could still afford to let the game make his design automatically. It would cost twice as much, though, and he wanted to save as many credits as he could, even if it meant assembling his design by himself. Vez spent the next 2 days fumbling with the virtual workshop's 3D printer. When he finally managed to print everything that he needed, he spent 3 more days trying to figure out how to put everything together in the workshop's assembler. As he connected the last few parts, he felt several steps closer to his first creation. He was so pleased that he even spent a few of his credits on paint. He painted the Fantasia's frame purple and red. You're not the most beautiful woman, but You're my first. When he realized what he had said, he cringed and shook his head, trying to block out any images of mech-human romance. He took one last look at his finished design and uploaded it to the market. There was an option to sell virtual mechs for real credits, but he decided not to. Iron Spirit used gold as its in-game currency, and pilots earned gold when they defeated their opponents. The market set a minimum price of 1,600 gold coins, which would only cover the cost of the raw materials that he had used. Let's bump that up to 1,700. I'm not gonna sell it at cost. I want to be paid for my time. After he had set the price for his design, he checked his profile, worried that his future career as a mech designer would be tainted by his first design. He decided not to use his real name. He chose Chasing Clouds as his username. It reminded him of both his home planet and his aspirations. Now, let's see what's out there. He went back to the market and found the page that displayed the mechs. If he wanted to design a competitive but affordable Fantasia variant, he would need to know what was already available. He scrolled through several pages of 2R variants, noting their components and attributes. He could use that information to come up with his own list of requirements. Vez dove into his task enthusiastically, feeling like his career in mech design was getting started. Designing virtual mechs for a game wouldn't qualify him as a real mech designer, but he would still get a chance to develop his skills, and after a few sales, he would be able to buy more licenses and design better variants. He knew that he would have to make his first sale quickly so that he wouldn't miss his interest payment. On top of his interest payments, he would need to earn enough to fund his business. Licenses were an expensive fixed cost, and the virtual ones only applied to in-game designs. He knew that he would struggle to afford real licenses. The real ones were prohibitively expensive and came with several restrictions. They granted the holder the privilege of using another company's intellectual property, but any earnings had to be shared with the company. It would be hard to earn a profit. He would need the system's help, and he would need his 2RE to sell. Lucky sauntered over and meowed at him. "What's up, buddy?" He reached down to pet the mechanical cat, who pawed at his pants and tried to lead him outside. "Do you need to go out?" He followed Lucky outside and saw something sparkling in the weeds. Leaning over and brushing them aside, he found a green gemstone. Vez smirked. "I'm not touching that. I know where it came from." Following the system's instructions, he scanned the gemstone to see what it was. "You've just given me an emerald of minor armor. Thanks." The emerald added 0.5% to the durability rating of armor plates. It was a small increase, but since the only thing that Vez had to do to get it was feed Lucky cheap ore, the small boost in durability seemed like a huge reward. He scratched Lucky's head. "If you keep giving me those emeralds, I can combine them and do something pretty amazing." He thought for a moment, and then decided to check with the system. System, if I collect a lot of the same gems, can I combine their power? No. There is a limit to the number of gems that can be applied to an individual mech, and gemstones that serve the same purpose don't provide additional benefits. Vez sighed. The system always seemed to place limits on everything. He turned to Lucky again. "It looks like I need to give you better food." He resolved to order something else for his cat and have it delivered to his workshop the following day. Unbeknownst to Vez, on the other side of Cloud Curtain, there was a 12-year-old boy who was looking for a mech. He had just gotten out of school, and he headed straight to a gaming center, rented a fully enclosed simulator, and logged in. He had already finished his basic mech piloting lessons, and even though he was far from qualified as a fighter, his skills had helped him pass Iron Spirit's minimum requirements. His username was Shifter66, and he was an avid player. Shifter66 preferred fast mechs. He loved dodging shots and executing quick attacks on his opponents. Slow, heavy mechs that got bogged down in close fights bored him to tears. He was too young to have a lengthy record of success, but he thought that he had a solid foundation. He could pilot basic one-star mechs. He had lost most of the games that he had played, but he had managed to save a few hundred gold coins for a newer model. He browsed through Iron Spirit's online market. At his age, he was starting to notice the girls at his school. So the feminine models caught his eye. He clicked on the Fantasia series. The designs were old, but they were still popular. He looked at several different variants. They interested him, but not enough for him to take a closer look. The Fantasia 2RE appeared, and he held out his palm to freeze its image so that he could study it more carefully. Tier, 1 star. Base model, Fantasia 2R. Purchase price, 1,700 gold coins. A more demanding or more experienced pilot might have noticed the 2RE's flaws. The module attached to its waist would throw off its balance, and it added so much weight that it would slow the mech down. Shifter 66 didn't notice, though. His eyes were glued to the Fantasia's rear end. She's perfect. I've got to have her. And just like that, Vez sold his first mech.